So one of the main questions that I get when I say that I'm going to be living out of my Jeep for the better part of next year is whether or not I'm going to bring a firearm. And right now I plan on, crossing a lot of different states, probably at least 30 plus states, heading out west. I don't know about going up north, and then also going into Canada and over to Alaska. And for that reason, I'm kind of leaning towards not bringing one. When I went on my cross-country trip earlier this year for a couple of weeks, I brought a handgun with me, and I know that I probably broke a couple of state laws along the way because of the way that I stored it. Maybe I didn't, but I just didn't feel like reading up on every single one, so I had the gun and the ammo separated at all times, and out of reach within where I sit in the driver's seat. So but when I went to Canada on a last-minute decision, I did that 2 days, I had to figure out what to do with that handgun instead of trying to bring it across into Canada and not get caught. The last thing I wanted is, to get banned from entering the country because of something like that. And so I ended up leaving it and somewhere and then coming back and picking it up. Both times, and I don't really want to have to deal with that again. I'm not going to be probably crossing in the same place twice, so I can't leave it like in a lockbox somewhere, and kept away because I don't want to drive hundreds of miles to go back and retrieve it. With a rifle or a shotgun, I know you can bring those across to Canada, but you got to have a lot of the paperwork, or a lot of paperwork filled out. You've got to have everything in line, and then the same thing to bring it back into the U.S. So I'd be going through multiple border crossings and having to explain the gun and dealing with all the paperwork and hoping that the Border Patrol agents know what they're doing and they don't give me a whole lot of crap. And then on top of that, if something's not in order, I can have it confiscated. I could be banned from coming in to Canada or back to the U.S. And it just seems like too much of a hassle to have to deal with and have something to screw up my trip like that. So pretty much a handgun is out. I've thought about it multiple times, and every time I think about how I'm going to handle it, it's pretty much would end up being illegal, so I don't want to do that. So I was kind of leaning towards either a rifle or a shotgun, and again, we're going through over 30 states and crossing the Canadian border multiple times. I just don't know if I want to deal with it. I'm going to be bringing knives and pepper spray and even maybe a hatchet, and all those are going to be used for other things, but could also be used as self-defense weapons. And I know it's not as good as a gun, but I just don't want my trip fouled up because I don't have my gun stored properly, or it's stolen out of the vehicle and then I have to deal with that, or I have to deal with Border Patrol. So I'm kind of hoping that there's somebody out there that has crossed the Canadian border with a firearm, has driven through multiple states, and just tell me, what your feelings are. I'm not wanting to get into the politics of it all. I know that some states are more lenient than others, but at the same time, it does come into play, and the laws are there because of whichever way the state swings. But I don't want to get into all that. It is what it is, and I just want to abide by the laws because I don't want to deal with issues while I'm out there. So if you've experienced anything along the lines of carrying a firearm, on a long cross-country trip and in a vehicle where you're on national land and state land, and that's the other thing is I think on national land you can have, like BLM land, you can have a firearm. But I think on state lands, they can still ban firearms, which is another problem because I'm going to be staying, at rest stops, truck stops, state lands, national lands, and I just don't feel like looking up the laws for every single location that I stay at. It just seems like such a hassle, and there's too much room for error. So if you do have any comments, please leave them below of any experiences, thoughts, anything along those lines. I know it's a touchy subject, but I am looking for some feedback. So anyway, hit the like button, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.